Thank you for joining us for the next segment of our interview with Aijaz Ahmed, a part of a series of interviews where we're asking scholars and journalists and foreign policy analysts what would be a rational foreign policy for the United States. So go further. What assumptions need to be questioned for the United States to be an equal nation amongst sovereign countries?
First of all, that the United States is and must remain the most powerful country in the world. If power comes to you because of your economic prosperity, that is fine. But the idea that this power has to be maintained militarily is something that has to be questioned very fundamentally.
Now, one of the things the United States has given itself the right to, and with the support of England and some other countries, for example, was the invasion of Iraq. This idea of preemptive strikes, ways to legalize what might be called unilateral action outside of the United Nations. This is an assumption that both major candidates for president in the United States seem to believe in.
So far as the United Nations is concerned, Paul, I would say that the Security Council has been disempowered so much, and the power of the General Assembly has been virtually abolished. We no longer even hear much of General Assembly except as a place where people just came and make rhetorical statements. So what I would emphasize is compatibility with the United Nations Charter. You have to have a foreign policy in which your principles and actions are always consistent and compatible with the provisions of the United Nations Charter, and that is the rational basis for any country so far as its place in the rest of the world is concerned. The invasion of Iraq by the United States, in my view, was no more legitimate than Saddam Hussein's invasion of Kuwait, which was illegitimate. But if you apply the same principles, that unilateral invasion and occupation of a foreign country, which is a sovereign country in its own rights, on premises which turned out to be lies anyway, but even in principle, you don't intervene in the affairs of other countries unless they pose an immediate military threat to you. And even then, according to the Charter, you must go to the Security Council. The point here is that the United States alone maintains the military capability to intervene in such a manner in the affairs of virtually any other country.
The argument for those bases is twofold, I think, and maybe more than two. Number one, the protection of oil routes. The necessity to fight back international terrorism, the idea that without American bases, dictators, evil forces, depending on who's speaking, Dick Cheney would describe it as the war of good and evil, that these bases are the bulwark defending civilization around the world. And there's even a sense, I think, amongst Americans that most people around the world want those bases there.
Now, you see, let's disaggregate the argument. You have said, spoken of 2 or 3 different rationales. One is the security of the oil routes. The fundamental fact, Paul, is that oil is no more a strategic necessity for the United States than it is for any other country in the world. It is as strategic for China, as strategic for Japan, in fact, more so since they have hardly any oil of their own. Fact of the matter is that they do not seek a military solution to this problem. Fact of the matter is that neither the old industrial powers of Europe nor the new industrial powers of Asia go that route. They don't believe that they need military bases in order to obtain oil. The United States must join these countries and act the way those countries do. That is what I mean, that the United States must act as one sovereign country among others.
In our next segment, let's discuss one of the elephants in the room. I think there's more than one, and that's the question of U.S. relations with China, because the issue of bases is becoming an expansion of bases, as what some people argue, an encirclement of China. So in the next segment, let's talk about that. Please join us for the next segment of our interview with Aijaz Ahmed.